selling $15,000 product for render. I had one or two that I didn't even speak to the customer.
My name's Sasha, and for almost a decade now, I've been helping new founders build and grow profitable e-commerce businesses. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Hammond Bamba, who's spent over $30 million on advertising and generated over $120 million for our client. We have Simon Brasolo, who turned his wife's health crisis into a $1 million sauna business selling $15,000 products that didn't even exist yet.
My wife got quite a challenging diagnosis about 4 years ago. And look, it really was quite a dire one.
How does it feel like going through that process, Simon, in terms of hiring people? Like 12 months ago, you know what I mean? It was like, am I going to need to shut the company down?
Yeah, look, you put all these plans down and try to manifest outcomes you want as well. But yeah, you don't get that validation until you get those proof points.
Just looking at your brand, like December, you're going to close on to be a 7-figure brand.
I think over the next 12 months, it'll be multiple 7 figures in terms of what we do.
How has it changed your belief about like what's possible for the future? Simon, welcome. Good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about NUVIE Saunas, how you came up with the idea, the product, what it is. Tell us a bit about that story.
Fantastic. So, NUVIE Saunas, we sell saunas. We sell infrared saunas, indoor saunas. We sell outdoor hybrid saunas, cold plunges as well. And really the idea for NUVIE was born out of a personal health journey. My wife got quite a challenging diagnosis about 4 years ago. And look, it really was quite a dire one. And we then went into quite a holistic natural protocols type of mindset, where we did obviously all the conventional stuff, but we complemented that with natural therapies. And we saw an integrative GP, and he recommended a really deep detox protocol using sauna therapy called the NICEN Detox protocol, which they actually created for the September 11 firefighters that were fighting those fires for probably a few months. And they all got toxin overload. And we sort of delved into that, and she did 2 or 3 rounds of that protocol, and we feel that it was really quite important in complementing what she was doing and keeping her healthy. And
and what's the protocol? Just I think I might have missed that. Just go into that, so that's really clear, because that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's a protocol over 30 days, and you take a supplement called NICEN, and you basically exercise on a rebounder for, say, 20 minutes. And NICEN starts to dislodge all these toxins, even long-stored toxins in your fat tissues. And you get moving, and that assists the process. And then you go into an infrared sauna for an hour at really high temperatures.
An hour? Wow, that's a long session. Jeez.
And look, it's quite remarkable in that she would come out of the sauna and her towel would smell like paint stripper.
What?
Yeah. So
wow.
it talks to just that extraction of heavy metals, toxins, and to a really large degree. And,
wow.
It was amazing, right? And like I said, it made her feel better in the short term, but we feel from a longevity perspective, it really assisted things.
Wow. And so that whole experience kind of became the idea of like, how could we share more of this, or how could we get, this concept of healing through using this process out to more people? Was that kind of how it came into mind?
Most definitely, and I started using the sauna daily, every second day, sort of thing, and saw the immediate and the longer term benefits myself, and loved it. And when I decided to move on from my corporate professional services gig, did niche research and really wanted to do something that was in a growing niche, something aligned to purpose and a bit of a passion point. And we sort of put both of those things together, and we wanted to spread the word.
Yeah, and I remember you're the only client in Ecom Capital that when I went into the validation with you, I was actually not like, I was like, don't do this. And I remember looking at the numbers and looking at them, everything, the margins were good, but I was like, this is a high risk. And I remember you were like, you were very convinced. And I was actually surprised on why you're so convinced in terms of this particular product. And particularly because it's a high ticket, like we try to manage risk all the time, seeing it's a big investment. And I remember very vividly saying to you in a call, like, this is not a good move. And I know that probably, like, again, I look at always positioning in terms of risk and so on. But I remember you taking that risk and actually you showed me the trend. You're like, hey, this is a trend. I remember you showed me a tool, like, this is what I'm looking at, but the passion behind it, I understand more like the reasoning in terms of you pushing and getting this done, but just the risk. So like that's something I remember very vividly being opposite to it. And I remember you were like, no, I'm going to be focusing on this for now.
It's so funny because I mentioned this on the weekend, and I was saying it to the group that we had a workshop on the Sunshine Coast this weekend, and I was saying to the founders around the table there, I was like, it's so fascinating because what happens is, like, when you have like any form of like coach or mentor or someone that's working with you closely, there's two outcomes that I always want when I give some advice to somebody. It's either that somebody like asks like 3 layers of questions as to like, how should I do it, the specifics, the details, the timings, the volumes, the velocities, the all of those things. I really want to follow very detailed, exactly the direction that you give me. And then you've got the other people, and I think these sometimes are the same person, but it's just in different instances where there's more, I call it entrepreneurial instinct. It's like the DNA that you kind of just have some, belief in your product, you have some belief in what you're doing, far greater than, perhaps someone with less context can give you. And so the other alternative is just like, F you, I will show you anyway. You know what I mean? And I've seen both of those play out really quite well, but I think the in-between is where people fail, where they don't really do anything. They don't really have any belief. They want some help, but not too much help. They don't really do directions, but not too much directions. And I love these types of stories where it's like, this is really quite risky, but watch me do it anyway. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you've done through this product, Simon. So very interesting.
Yeah, and look, to that point, I think the structure, the process, the market analysis was all there. And look, I think I did have some good belief in the market analysis and the niche research that we did. But yeah, I think it was that sort of entrepreneurial instinct and probably that passion point and purpose point. Where
you traveled there, you went to the supplier, you sent us pictures. Like we have the pictures like in the Slack channel. You went there and did the action. So I remember that, like, you were pretty much doing the actions right away.
Yeah. And I think that, it's not always smart as well to do something that you're passionate about, because it can actually cloud you, but it can also assist you and give you that extra perseverance and drive. And I think it's given me that in this instance.
Talk me through the process of, like, once you took that big bet in terms of the MOQ, like, what happened from there? What were the next steps? Like, how did things progress? I'm assuming it wasn't just like all immediate explosive growth and then all of a sudden like sales were flying in. Like, how did that process happen? What were some of the challenges that you went through from like, okay, we're doing this, I'm going to proceed with the validation of this product, I'm going to go and invest probably a large chunk of cash into this kind of like startup? Like, talk me through that a little bit.
Sure. I actually did an initial product run, sort of samples and a small order with a manufacturer. And going through that process, I was probably losing a little bit of confidence in the manufacturer for a variety of different reasons. So I went over to China, to Hayman's earlier point, and visit them.
Nice.
Also went to the Canton Fair as well, and I met some other suppliers there. I went and saw one or two that trip, and then I met one in particular that has been a huge driver of our growth, and that was important because that allowed me to essentially start some initial product development with other manufacturers to de-risk this primary manufacturer. And what I did with that, I got some 3D design files from their suppliers, and then I engaged a renderer, the 3D designer, to essentially render some different products for the range. And I used that initial next 2, 3, 4 months to test what actually worked out in market. And I was actually able to sell off these renders initially. And I gave me that initial sort of market feedback and direction. And then that led to some investment decisions.
And what was how closely aligned was it in terms of the market feedback versus what you thought it would be versus what it was, if that makes sense? Like, I think that these products are going to be good. I think these are going to sell. And then the feedback says X, people are paying for this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look, I made some decisions around what I thought could work based on what I saw in the market at the time, and through discussing the product development with the manufacturers. And then, it actually turned out to be the highest ticket item or collection that I thought I'd sell one every now and again. But that was actually the product in the range that everyone was mostly keen about.
Interesting.
We got some initial sales, and I'm selling what was a $15,000 product off a render via Shopify, and I had one or two that I didn't even speak to the customer. And I'm like, okay, well, there's something in this, so let's continue developing and build some content around this product range and see if we can get a little bit of scale happening.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to say is that your business, when I looked at it and kind of like zooming out and looking at all the parts we have, marketing actually is the most scalable of everything. We have like an insane return on ad spend just looking at it, but it's because you built something so unique that technically like the marketing was never a challenge. It's more the fulfillment, more the other parts, the operations, rather than the marketing. Because you brought in a product that I would say complexity is just coming in from delivering the product. It's not just you click and then like an automation happens and someone deliver this in 2 days. It's actually more after the click. So you do so many things from what I've seen just when someone purchases versus any other products.
Yeah.
Mm. How has it, when you kind of like started the business, Simon, versus like where you are now? This is a question that I was speaking to one of the members that we had up at the workshop yesterday as well, and he was particularly excited because like his products really, really, really started to ramp up, and there's a lot of sales volume. There's a lot of like market to kind of serve his product into, and I was like, how has it changed your belief about like what's possible for the future? You know, like if you think back to like when you first started and you were like, okay, yeah, I think this is good. And then now where you are right now in terms of like sales volumes, and you're seeing, you know, people love the product, you're seeing the benefits of people using the product the same as yourself. How has it shifted in terms of just like your own validation of like your ideas, your own validation of like, I can do this? Does that make sense? Like, are you noticing like a compounding kind of effect around like, my ideas, when acted on, come into fruition and people pay money for this is a real thing? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And that part's been really cool, you know, in that you often doubt yourself, particularly earlier on in the journey. And to have that sort of ongoing validation every week, every month, we're sort of moving forward, we're growing, has been really nice, and particularly when there's that sort of sense of purpose involved in the business and the products that we're producing. So that's been a really, I suppose, fulfilling, part of this journey. And I, even as recent as say a month, 2 months ago, I thought the rate of growth would be a lot slower, sort of this next year and next few years, but.
You're just looking at your brand. Actually, December, you're going to close on to be a 7-figure brand, right? Just in terms of sales for the year, December, probably if we just keep that pace, you're going to be at that 7-figure level, which I think it's a big milestone just as a business.
Yeah. And I think over the next 12 months, there'll be multiple 7 figures in terms of what we do. And I'm now very much of the belief that we'll be an 8-figure brand, in the next sort of 2-3 years as well.
Yeah, amazing. Talk to me about how it was to get your wife on board with this project. Was she supporting you? Was she like, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. Like, how was that process? This is always a point of tension amongst entrepreneurs, speaking from experience. So tell me a little bit about that. How was that process? Is she fully like gung-ho, like, let's get this into as many homes as possible? Is she like, what are you doing? This is crazy. I can't believe that you're investing so much into this product idea. Like, run me through that a little bit.
Yeah, look, she's been really supportive the whole way through, and she's a great sounding board. So, where we are making a big decision or an investment or something like that, she's great to talk to. So she's kind of in, and she I think she backs me, and she's supportive of the journey. No doubt, like there's been times when she's been like, okay, well, what are we going to do this month? And early on, and do we need to think about going back to and getting a real job, that type thing. There's been a couple of those moments, but very supportive is the.
Talk me through the process, because you mentioned that you're all in on the business. Did you do that before you launched the product? When did you kind of like hang up the reins on the corporate, professional services kind of job you said you were in? I just want to know that, and I want to also know how that positively and then also sometimes perhaps negatively impacted like decision making, sometimes a little bit of desperation of being like, oh my God, like talk me through that a little bit, because I notice a lot of people do that at different moments and different times, and it's fascinating because I think some people it's a big strength, and then some people they go way desperado, and then you're like, you actually need a job. You need to stay there while you build. So talk me through how it happened for you.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting one, and there's no right answer. I started chipping away at the early part of the eCom Cup course whilst I was still working, but it's quite a demanding job, and I was finding it really hard to give the new gig focus and to drive momentum. So I thought I'd finish up the corporate gig, have a little breather, because it had been a big sort of period at work and also on the personal family front, and spent a little bit of time with family as well. And from that point I left, I went sort of straight into the eCom Cup and really committed to going through the process. It was a long cycle, sort of building the business, so certainly the product in the first instance, because I started on a separate niche within the macro niche, and went down that pathway for 2 or 3 months at least, and then had to make a courageous decision to sort of pull the reins on that and then pivot.
Right.
Obviously there's been pressure because there wasn't income coming in, but we did have a little bit of a financial buffer, but that was obviously going pretty quickly. My wife had a little bit of income coming in though, so that certainly did help. But I reckon, Heyman, there was a time, May or something like that.
Yeah, I remember we had a call. I remember a call where we looked at the numbers and everything. And I remember you were like, you actually went just in terms of like, you went all in a year before in terms of just full-time positioning all the elements for this product and development. So I think it took you a year before, correct? Just working on research and preparing things. And then we did this call where we analyzed the risk. And I remember that very vividly, like risk in terms of income, what would happen in the next, let's say, 10 months. Like we did a lot of predictions in that call.
That's right. And yeah, obviously cash flow was a really big one. We had that huge, we had a $200,000 order coming in, and we needed to demonstrate sell-through against that order to sort of feel a bit more comfortable about continuing the business. So there was almost like a set of scenarios, and one of them was actually we pulled the reins on it. But yeah, we just kept on pushing. We had, I think, a good June. And that sort of validated it a bit further for us, got some more cash flow in there. And then I suppose since then, it's been...
Yeah, we did like worse. I remember when we did this call, I was actually telling you if we predict all the scenarios, you're not going to be operating with stress. If we put that in front of you, like you can see it, this is the worst case scenario. It's going to drain this amount of cash. You will have to make this decision. It's going to be very tough if that happens. But we talked about like almost like what would happen if we have to kind of pivot and not necessarily put in all that risk into all the orders. That's right. And that theme around not operating with fear and being in sort of control around each of the scenarios was an important, I suppose, ethos or mindset. And it was good getting it down on paper and having that structure in front of us.
Love it. Very good. And then what have been some of the milestones that you've achieved, Simon? Like, I guess this year has been the real year where the business has started to pick up a lot more kind of momentum, and it seems like we're trending in a very positive direction. So have there been any particular milestones that you feel like you reflect on as we come into the end of this year that you're like, yeah, that was very special, like this was really quite noticeable? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think on the operational people side and also the financial side, so getting to that first sort of $100,000 a month was a cool milestone, and then the first multiple 100,000 a month was also really cool, and really sort of is paving the path forward for further investment and growth. I think starting our meta campaign or campaigns in June had a significant, almost immediate impact.
Nice.
And that then helped us to feel more confident around our funnels. And the video ads that we're shooting sort of every month or two really started to become quite effective in Meta, which was really cool. And we've actually had quite a lot of longevity out of those assets, and it hasn't been a huge cost center as well. So it's been a really good ROI method for us.
You're like running at the last 30 days, 130 extra hours. That's like, just for anyone thinking about it. And then like on a bad month, it's like 50x. That's like a bad month.
That's madness. That's very good. Very, very, very. But then you pay the price over here on the back end and all the rest of the stuff that you have to. That's
right. So our hard costs, freight, warehousing, there's a lot of costs there, right? But in saying that, there's a whole piece around attribution, which we're now starting to get to the bottom of, in that because, and Shopify won't like to hear this, but a lot of our sales go through via bank transfer, right? Because it's the high ticket nature of those. And that means there's a bit of a breakage point in the attribution cycle. So I think that, there's been a number of scenarios where across Google Ads and Meta, it's been hard to sort of have confidence in the data and make decisions, even though intuitively we believe Meta's been effective for us. So very recently we brought on a technology called Hyros that helps give us a much higher degree of confidence in the attribution and performance of our spend.
I'm super excited for you for that. It's a very, very robust tool, and I think it's going to give you so much clarity in terms of ad sets, campaigns, traced right the way through, the first click that the customer clicked on right through the last click they touched before they actually converted. Like, so many good things will come into your business because of the use of that tool. So I'm very, very, very excited for that. That's great. Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And I think the third sort of milestone was, I guess, having the ability to put on a full-time staff member, in the operation, the warehouse, helping out with customer service and the customer experience. So that's been really cool. And then he's been fantastic, but his dream was always to become a cop. So he's going to do that early next year.
Right.
We've just signed quite a senior operations lead from a 8-figure e-commerce fitness e-commerce brand. They're going to be starting early next year as well, and help me to drive better scale in the operation, and with a big focus on customer experience as well.
Mm. How does it feel like going through that process, Simon, in terms of hiring people? Like 12 months ago, you know what I mean? It was like, Am I going to need to shut the company down? Is it and now you're like, out there and like finding expensive employees, bringing in these like senior people with great experience. Like, how does that process feel? Like, does it feel like it's just like, well, I always knew it was going to happen, or is it pretty surreal for you to kind of go through that?
Yeah, look, you put all these plans down, and I think you try to manifest the outcomes you want as well. But yeah, you don't get that validation until you get those proof points, really. And then when you achieve them, you feel a sense of fulfillment, but you're not fully surprised because this was built by design, right? So I think feels good, but not surprising.
Isn't it odd? You're like, wow, this is amazing, but you're like, what else did I think was going to happen? It's quite a surreal experience when you have these big, milestones, and you're like, this is fantastic, but I've also spent 80 hours a week for the last 18 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, working hard, going back and forth, traveling to China, doing the prototype. Like, you did all the work essentially. So yeah. I know you're probably not surprised because of the effort you put in.
Mm. Yeah, and look, I work obviously day and night and still do, but because I'm running my own gig, I do get that flexibility from family perspective, and I've had breakfast and dinner with my little girl and wife just about every day over this last period. That's one of the benefits.
That's amazing. Are there any characteristics, like say, for example, we take away the product, take away everything in terms of the specifics of the business that you run, and like Simon and the characteristics that he kind of like exhibited over the last, whether it's 12 or 18 months that perhaps went into the business doing what it has done, and the business kind of like going on to do really, really quite well in the first 12 months. Would you kind of like pinpoint them down to any things, maybe taking risks, maybe like the work ethic, maybe any things that you did over this period that you're like, look, if I wouldn't have taken those bets, if I wouldn't have spoke to my wife, if I wouldn't have worked X amount of hours, like anything come to mind around that, so other people might be able to take from some of the behaviors that you kind of like exhibit in growing the business?
Yeah, I think you've got to be really gritty, and you got to be prepared to be humble and do a lot early on. And work absolutely really hard to set it up, right? And I think that was all things from I spent every day for weeks refining the website, and if I didn't do that, I think it would have compromised the way the brand would have been perceived and the way we've converted to a large extent. And to the point that I was customizing little bits on the website using ChatGPT to help drive custom code, and so that was a huge personal contribution to a single thing. Yeah. But also, like on the product development side of things, there's a lot of risks there. It's challenging, building custom product with Chinese manufacturers, right? And you gotta really persevere on that. You gotta work hard.
Yeah, like when you think about it, like I remember, just to cut you off here, but I remember when we talked about this, and it was all just ideas, just ideas, and you were like, you have this thing, and just like you there's like issues with just the samples. It's all not real, but you're working on it, and that's very challenging.
Yeah, and look, I know it's probably the smarter thing, but when you said, hey, man, you just get a sample and start selling the sample, just ship it as is. And I actually, and maybe this was just because of the whole passion point purpose side of things, but I just couldn't do that. The products largely in this industry don't align with my values or our values as a brand. And that meant there was a longer product cycle and development cycle to launch, but somewhat mitigated through doing these renders and selling essentially initially vaporware. So yeah, that was I guess that part of the journey. But Yeah, that involves day and night work with the suppliers, almost even to this now, right? No, I'm working on a daily basis.
What do you think? So what do you think in terms of? So you mentioned your values and you mentioned passion like a lot through the conversation so far. Do you think, do you think that every founder needs to have like these like really concrete kind of like values that they operate their business by? Do you think that like your values maybe sometimes caused you more pain of like, you know, perhaps delaying results longer than you would have otherwise if you didn't have like just I'd love to hear your perspective on it, because I think it's one of those like amorphous kind of terms of like your values and your passion and your purpose. And I think people think about it from this lens of like a lot of people come into starting a new company with the main goal of like, geez, I want to make more money. You know what I mean? And so like most people do it for that reason. And then so I know that sometimes people also get caught up in like values. Oh, geez, do I need to, you know, wait and get my values aligned before I start doing my product? What even is important to me? Do you understand? It can be quite a confusing thing, but it's a blessing for you because you feel like you've got it kind of down pat. So just talk into that a little bit. That'd be very interesting. Yeah,
sure. So I suppose the vision and values, the purpose involved, and the story behind the business meant that the journey to launch and to validation was longer, right? You got all. We didn't want to just launch with something off the shelf that was arguably not good for your health, right? When we'd been through this health journey, and we sort of learned a lot about living a healthier life and optimizing one's health. So that absolutely made us take a lot longer to launch. But what it has done is it's allowed us to differentiate the product to a large degree and make our sales funnel a lot more streamlined and drive a lot more demand and ultimately sales, which is cool. And people also resonate with the personal founder story as well, and a lot more than I initially thought. Quite a lot of people comment on it, for instance, and they resonate with the brand because of it, right? So that's the other big piece with why it works. But I also see why, just launching an unemotional, quick to market, highly researched product and into a niche can also work well and be a lot faster too.
I always just look at it in terms of like where you pay, because I think you never miss out on like paying. And then so say, for example, there was a client recently at another workshop we ran. He kind of developed this bacteria microbe kind of like for dogs that like healed all of their kind of dry skin. And it was just this patented formula. He'd worked on it for 6 or something years. His dogs had the issue, so he solved it for his dogs. It's like one of one in the world. You know what I mean? Really, really, really unique. And it was fascinating because we were sitting around this table together, workshopping on like, companies kind of like strategic advantage, how to kind of position oneself in the marketplace and all these things. And it was just such a side-by-side comparison, because you'd have on the one hand the founders that have like developed or brought a product to market that is probably a little bit more like, I wouldn't say copycat, but it's like an improvement of something that is, right? And then you've got the individual who's been, building like real like proprietary information and strategy for the last like 4 or 5 years. And so you see it side by side. And then on one side, you've got these guys and they're having to work so hard to like, how could I spin this up? How could what would be the marketing language that I could use? And this guy's over here and he's just like, so we have this double-blind case and we have this and there's this study and we're the only person in the world that has this. And within 7 days, this happens and everyone's like, I wish I could say that. But it's like, you wish you could say that about your product and have that kind of confidence, but you don't want to go through the 5 years of investment and cash and like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind to develop the product. So I think it's like you either pay here on the front end, you know what I mean, by like strong USP development, or you pay over here with like ad spend and trying to figure it out and what's your message to market and weird little hooks and like creative strategy. And it's like, you're never going to skip out on the fact that you're going to need to invest some cash, really.
That's right. And I think whilst there has been some strong USP development here, the niche saunas is, it's not that it's insurmountable to build a custom product. It doesn't take as long as maybe other niches. So one of the initial niches that we're looking at was this water filter bottle, and people do hydrogen water and thing. We actually started with that, and some of the tooling and mold fees that product would take to sort of get up and running, even just before we build our sample or the first production run, it was going to take several months and cost tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 just to get the tooling set up right.
Yeah. I remember actually we did a call where you presented to me like the cost. It was like, this is going to cost me this amount. I was like, that just doesn't make sense. It's just the cost and the time. And I remember very vividly, you mentioned there was like a specific fee that was added to, get the first sample. So I was like, it's just impossible to even get something unless you pay tens of thousands. I was like, that's too much risk. And I remember, in our calls, you're looking to perfect the product. And I know I was very much positioning an easy kind of path, don't necessarily take the big risk. But that one, I remember the high risk just to get started.
That's right. And, before the product's even validated, right? So that's why we pull the reins on that idea. And with the new niche, you can actually build a custom product with very little upfront out of pocket. You just define it in the specification for the first production run. So it was a smarter move from a practicality standpoint too.
Of course, yeah. What are some of the, like, if we look at the next 12 months, Simon, down the end of say 2026, where would you like to be? Where do you want the brand to be? What's the kind of ideas that you have in mind? Like, how many people? How many products are we selling? Like, what does that look like in the next 12 months?
Yeah, sure. So I do want to continue to work on this product range, right, and to truly create products that we're incredibly proud of and are making a huge difference in the world for people.
Yeah, and
I want to actually improve the industry as well. It's an unregulated industry. And a lot of the brands, a lot of products are great, but there's things that I don't love about them that really do need to be improved. So we'll continue to evolve that product side of things. Obviously, want to have a more built-out team, having some of the business functions separated or with dedicated resources. I think that'd be really cool. Financially, we want to be a few $1 million at least in annual turnover. And I think that's probably the goal at this stage.
Nice. And in terms of blockers or things that are, what are the biggest problems you're going through at the moment in terms of challenges, things that you're really like workshopping through in the company that we can probably like spend some time strategically breaking down and seeing where we can unlock some additional kind of like growth in this next 12 month drive to actually get to that outcome?
Yeah, sure. So getting a handle on the operation, we really do focus on the customer experience. It's such an important part of the brand, I think the industry and the purchase flow and kind of satisfaction cycle. So continuing to invest in that, and I think this appointment that we've made is going to be a huge player in that. And to drive that, because I guess when we started and up until kind of July, like I was essentially doing everything with my old man who's retired. He sort of chipped in here and there at certain points as well. But having a bit more focus around the different functions is going to be really, really important to drive excellence in each area, whether that be warehousing, logistics, customer experience, support, sales, marketing. So that's going to be a big piece. And then ensuring that we can get enough production flow and stock into Australia is going to be really important. We've sort of reached that point now where we're now having to sort of sell on pre-order more often than we'd like to.
Yep.
So that's going to be big. And we're fortunately in a warehouse facility where we can scale our space pretty dynamically. So I just added another 70 square meters yesterday, I think it was. It's co-warehousing space, and we've got our showroom there too. So that part's really good. We're going to be held back by space, but probably those areas, Sasha.
Got it. I want you to, as you are looking to, I'm just going to share my screen. As you're looking at each of the departments, this is something that so it's, I'm sure you're familiar with, or if not, that theory of constraints model, in terms of like a business will grow to the height of its lowest constraint. And so one thing that I always do is I'll kind of like map all of the, for example, like departments in the company as an example, and be like, okay, so what we have here is we've got marketing, we've got sales, we've got product, and we've got operations, we've got finance, and you can get more technical and add like, tech and information, all those kinds of things. But to really, really, really just keep it simple, if we keep it in these five sections, and then we look at like in your business as an example, what would you say from like 1 to 10 your marketing would be? And then what about the sales in terms of like, this is like point of sale, this is the offer, this is your conversion rate, this is your web experience, the whole entire process there. Okay. What about the product itself, by way of like how amazing the product experience is, them unboxing it, them getting it delivered, that whole like experience of them using the product. How would you rate that 1 to 10? 7. And what about operations? This is everything from your inventory management, any and all things that happen on the back end post sale is included in operations. Customer service, all those things are included in here. Cool. And then finance. So this is everything to do with like cash conversion cycles, projections from a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast, like your budget versus actuals, all of those particulars and how they match and marry up to the specifics of like what happens in the business versus what we've projected. Okay. Yeah, good. And so it's like what will happen, and this is what every founder goes through, is like they do the thing that feels to them easiest. And so it's very obvious to say, okay, Simon's pretty good at sales. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take too much for the bloke to hop on a phone and have some conversations with people, talk about a product that he's really passionate about. And hey, would you look at that? He got a sale. You know what I mean? It's like there's not too much there to develop further. But what happens is a lot of the time people get stuck in doing the thing that makes them feel good as opposed to the thing that the company actually needs. And so you could, for example, get the 8 up to a 10 as an example and add 2 points here. And that wouldn't do too much to the rest of the business because your operations are still, cooked. And so like doing this and seeing if you could add, 3 points here would completely transform the whole company in terms of, because what you're looking to do, I look at it in the sense of, there's another diagram that I kind of like, I created recently where I think it's like, on the bottom level, it's like you need to do essentially generate the traffic. You need to get the conversion. You need to do the fulfillment. And then you need to have the renewal and the repeat. And you need to do all those things. And then you need to get a system to do those things. And then you get people. And so what happens a lot of the time is like, you need to start them first, because it's like you as the founder, you're the only person that can be stupid enough sometimes to get paid zero to work really hard on something that no one else believes in. And so it's like, first it's like, okay, well, I need to get the traffic. Am I getting traffic in KPI to my business? Am I converting that traffic at a KPI that's kind of acceptable and provides me with profit? Yes. That's good. Am I fulfilling on, similar to what we said here, are the operations kind of running in a way whereby I'm not kind of like building this balloon of like back end debt of like, you know, customers that are waiting for product type thing. How can I improve that? And then are they repeating? Are they renewing? Are they coming back over and over again? And then it's like once you do it all the way through from left to right, then you go into the system mode, which is like you, but it's you leveraged. And it's like, how could I do this better? How could I do this in less time? How could I have like really well documented processes such that like I jump in and I spend 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 6 minutes, and I've set things up from traffic. And then, you know, you've got this process. And then when you scale the last component here, which is people, that then you hand the process to the person. Right. And so the process or the system here becomes transferable as opposed to, you know, what happens a lot of the time is like you do it okay, kind of reasonably well. And this is what happens a lot of the time. And then it's like, I haven't really developed the system. I don't really know the context. I don't really know it that well. And then I'm going to go and like find somebody to do this for me. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's gone bad. And it's like, well, of course it's gone bad because you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what good looks like. And then you're transferring it across to somebody else and you don't know how to manage that person. So this is how I think about it in terms of level one being like, all right, I need to, you know, go through the suck, so to speak, and master these things. And then level two is like, how do I create more leverage, create more kind of like efficiencies, squeeze more out of what I've got. And then once you've squeezed more out of what you've got, then you add a person because you also, one thing that happens all the time in any business is the company grows and the revenues grow, and then what happens is the decision making and the complexity the complexity increases, and thus the decision speed and the velocity of growth, generally speaking, declines. Right, and so it's like this happens way too quick if there is not really, really, really strong and structured like system process in place, so that you could say, here, Fred, you just joined as X, Y, and Z role. Read these things. This is exactly how I've done it. This is the outcomes from me doing it for the last, 6 months. Follow that, optimize that, make that better, but this is your Bible to work under. And then what happens as a result of not doing that is folks often bring in external people, and then those people, number one, they can't do the job anywhere near as effectively as the founder because they haven't been trained properly around a specific process, and then you incur so much waste because you've got kind of like expensive people doing things that you don't really know how to manage. They don't really know what good looks like, and then you've just got all this extra overrun that starts to kind of accumulate. And it's one of the biggest kind of one of the most noticeable things that I've seen is where founders get into that hiring kind of like stage, and they hire people, and then they have all of these people in the company that they're working kind of somewhat okay-ish, but it's like, I'm not too sure how good. Is it good enough? Is it not good enough? I have a client of mine, he way too early on hired one of his family members, very, very, very close family member to him. And I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. You know what I mean? I think that like this is something in the future where you've made tens and tens of hundreds of millions. Then you just come and you're like, here you go, like just have this. I don't want anything from it. I don't want anything from you. And it's like he kind of made this decision and went through the process of hiring one of his family members. And I'm like, you've got a situation where you've got a family member who doesn't work that well, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, you're paying probably 2 or 3 times what you could have just outsourced. And it's like the sequencing is what matters the most. I think that's the thing that I'm the most obsessed with at the moment is like, I don't think that there is truly any such thing as like the right information or the right strategy. It's just what's right for me right now. You know what I mean? Like, what is the most relevant thing? It's like for you going into, I don't know, like developing very complex organizational chart design and hardcore incentive structures. Like you probably get benefit as your team gets bigger and bigger and bigger in the next 18 months. But it's like right now you need like hardcore, like full blown, like system orientation, strapping down all the efficiencies, refining everything, mapping every single process from start to finishing, being like, there, that's where the waste is. Boom, cut. There, that's boom, cut, and just driving that kind of efficiency and squeezing because like if you can in this stage you're in right now, shorten as many of the processes from like click to sale, from like order to delivery, and you can compress as much as possible, exactly like what is mentioned here with this is going to happen. right? And so like, it's like, if I can run my business in a way that is the simplest, it's the most efficient with me running these things, and I've like really just squeezed every drop that I could possibly get out of this thing, then I know that as I start to hire people and add more complexity back in, like I have ground to give up, if that makes sense. The opposite of this is when founders come in and they run their business like a shit show, and then they add some more people who don't know what they're doing on top of that. And then it's madness. Waste is everywhere. People running around. I don't know what I'm doing. What's the measurement of that? What does success look like there? I'm not too sure. What happens if this person does this? What's the punishment? What's the no idea. And so I think you're in a really, really, really unique phase at the moment, but also very empowering, where I think not jumping ahead too quickly and being like, let's hire, but being like, how do I, when I hire, transfer? You know what I mean? How do I transfer what success looks like such that person can have such a great result when they work in my company, and then you can manage them with, 2 interface points per week, as opposed to like, hardcore, like what's happening and how you going and is everything okay? What are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? It's like, that's what consumes. There's 2 different types of entrepreneurs, and you can actually use it based on this. So there's entrepreneurs that are, and they focus predominantly here in these 2 quadrants, and they're called the people who do the capital allocation, essentially, right? And then you have the people that do the operational management, which is this piece here. And so they're very different skills, okay? Like to constantly look at your business through the lens of like, up and out, investment capital, where are we putting capital, how are we finding the next person, where's the next market, where's the next influencer, how are we going to turn this $10,000 investment into 1.5 million. Like it's these big, massive force multiplier moves. And then there's the other type of skill set, which is that operational management, which is like down and in. And it's like, how do we, manage the complexity? How do we make sure that things are done right? And so I think at the moment, obviously operations being a big blocker here, if your skill set is much stronger in this quadrant here, what you will find, and it's very similar for the company Ecom Capital, once I found an individual to help me and I had really, really, really good, strong kind of initial structure and framework of what good looked like, and then I brought someone in the ops department so that I could focus more onto capital allocation, the company 2x, 3x, 4x very, very, very quickly. You know what I mean? But it needs to rest on like pretty sound foundations to begin with. And I think that's the zone that you're in at the moment, is that let's get the foundations squared in. Let's like squeeze everything so I'm very tight. So when I hand it over, I'm not handing over chaotic mess to somebody that's still learning. And you have a gift that I was saying this on a meeting yesterday that I had with one of our team members, where a lot of the time I find that founders, they don't believe in their own abilities for quite some time, right? It's like, I'm not really that, I'm not really that good at marketing, or like, I guess I'm okay. But it's like there's a big insecurity around like me being that good. I for a decade probably now still think I'm pretty subpar ordinary, but I think it's very helpful because it makes me work very, very, very hard to constantly close the gap on whatever the insecurities that I have around myself. And it's not until you put yourself in and around people that are quote unquote like really good at what they do, but what you'll find is you'll run rings around them because you have all the context. Right, you're deeply entrenched in your company, and So when I speak to customers on the phone and they say this, I know what that means. That means you have all these like subtle nuances that no one else has, and you go and hire someone from this company and that company. They're not going to pick up on those things. This is what I said before, that entrepreneurial kind of instinct. And it's like, that's your magic juice that you want to document and systematize and put into process. That you go, here's how we do things. Say these words. Do you understand? When someone says this, you do that, and really, really, really streamline that so well, because then that will scale you rather than just like adding another person and then they come in and they're like, oh, that's cool. I've done this stuff before. I'll just do this. And you're like, we don't do that here. Like you said before, values.
Could to scale the business. I'm just thinking from a marketing perspective, like I have like a good grasp of the marketing so far. Would you, because he's good with sales, would you actually just probably systemize that and hire someone and kind of improve the operational side? Like what would you do? Because I think that's a whole other thing. If you see, for example, I want to scale the business, I'm good with sales, I'm not good with operations, and we want to scale more, potentially systemize that, hire someone, optimize the back end, and then scale. Would you do that, like draw the orders and sequencing?
I think that's very, very, very much needed in terms of that. But I think it's also like you can't hand over something that you don't know, and so that's like you need to be feeling the pain of being like, man, I'm maxed out here. Like I'm doing this ops stuff, and this is like one of my least degrees of competence. I'm not that good at it, but I'm sucking it up and I'm making it work to the point where I'm like, this hurts me every day getting in here, but I'm making it work because I know that it's necessary. And then when you hand it over to somebody, it's like, okay, this is how we do it. I want you to give me improvement areas on how we could kind of like ramp up efficiencies with this process, and it's like, I think it's very, very, very key. But to your point, Hammond, absolutely. I would implement or sort, which it sounds like you're all over, Simon, in terms of that operational component, sort that, and it will give you so much more like bandwidth and capacity to push the business forward, product development, additional marketing efforts, additional sales, conversion process through your funnel, whatever that looks like, but it'll free you up to do so much more. But this business particularly, it'll always be supply constrained versus demand constrained, right? Your demand, from what it sounds like, comes in thick and fast from a Facebook ad that generates 150x return. It's like, you're always going to be in a position.
Also, you have like challenges. If I was to think about it, we talked about this a little bit in terms of the offer, for example. Right now, we want to make sure that obviously this is not a dropshipping brand. This is not a brand where you come in and you think, well, it's a Black Friday offer and then they're going to extend it. No, that's not something we do. So I'm curious about your positioning, particularly in terms of the marketing, because we also don't lack, like just say this, as you mentioned, we have like a lack of inventory rather than customers. So what would you do in terms of offer transitioning, particularly in terms of the marketing?
I wouldn't actually do as much on the offer component because I think it's a short-term stimulus. I would actually, and I don't know how much you're doing of this at the moment, Simon, but I would be leaning much more into the personal story. You mentioned that people seem to like it, people seem to connect with it. And from what I've seen just briefly through your ads and your website, it's not used in the way that it could to drive conversion. You have the opportunity with this brand, especially with the ROAS that you're getting on ads, to take that story, use it in, even if like I could see you creating just organic content talking about the story with your wife, the transformation with your wife, the health benefits, all these amazing things. And it's like that in and of itself is going to create so much more connection with the audience that they'll buy because of you. And it's like they will pay a premium. They won't care about questions. They won't sit there and be like, oh, yeah, I'm not too sure about I'll wait until the sale. And so it's like, I haven't mentioned something about key man risk before. And so I went to one of Hormozi's workshops. I think I'm going there next week, actually, which is wild. Again, but he mentioned something around like key man risk. And he's like, a lot of people, when they have, when they're initially starting their companies, they're doing everything, right? They're doing the marketing, the sales, they're shooting the ads, they're doing the delivery, they're doing operations, the whole thing. And then it's like, okay, so which of those components drives the most like cash? And it's like, it's the front end ads and it's obviously the delivery of the product. You need to deliver on what you sell. And then he's like, so a lot of people have this ability to use their story, but they don't use it. And so they look for like influencers, they look for like, I don't know, UGC creators, they look for like static ads, they look for all this crap. And it's like, what does the market actually want? Well, the market wants like a real connection with a real person. Hey, this is actually how this brand was created. This was the pain point that we actually solved for our own family. I'm here to share this with you. Like that. And people are like, oh my God, because the thing is, and it's like the sauna market has gotten more and more and more and more sophisticated because of what you said before. There's a lot of idiots selling a lot of junk, right? And so it's like to the unsophisticated consumer, they go, a bit cheaper by that. right? And so the story is the delta, right, that kind of puts meaning behind what you do. And I think you can tap way more into that and create, unless you're planning to sell the company or exit it in the next 12 months, you want to be the point man. You want to be the hero. You want to be front and center. You want to be like, this is my vision. This is where we're going with this company. This is what we do and don't do. These are my values. This is what you're going to experience when you purchase. Hey, come with me. I'm going to walk you through this thing. Like, check this out. This is the benefits. Like that level of like storytelling, I think will offset a lot of the needing to stimulate like hardcore offers and bits and pieces, simply because people will be like, oh, I just trust this guy. He's a product of the product. His wife is a product of the product. And so I think you need to lean much more into that and create a lot more kind of story-based content, you-based content. If your wife's comfortable, I would highly recommend kind of both of you guys shooting some stuff together, talking about it, publishing, promoting it, like doing that level of engagement with your audience. Because the thing is, like, I think about the Found Space company that I mentioned to you before that I purchased from, and I'm like, it looked nice, and it was very expensive, but I was like, it just looked really nice, and the image was really good. Like, I was very, very, very close to purchasing, I think it was the Odin, I think it was, and then a lot of that was because of the people that I saw using it. You know what I mean? It was like some of the influencers, some of the MMA fighters, some of these people. That's what kind of like swayed me towards that one. And then I think they had some issues with their products, deliveries, timelines, all those things. And so it's like, in a high ticket kind of market, particularly, the personality matters so much more. People buy the person. People buy. Think about the ultimate example of this. What do real estate agents do? They sit there and they develop these like crazy images with them in suits and ties and in cars, and they're trying to sell a personality to then sell a house. And people buy the person because they trust the person, they like the way they look, they like the car they drive, and then they trust them to come and buy the house. Because arguably, I think they're all pretty similar. But it's like, I trust that this guy comes to my house, he calls me every 3 months, checks on my property valuation. It's like, that's your opportunity here with this product, is like high ticket product. How do I engage on a very personal level here that kind of offsets any need for whiz bang offers and crazy marketing tactics? Like we've said already through the session, it's like, there's not much need for that. And so I think the personal component, that can be like your rocket fuel to go deep into that. That's my view.
And you would essentially, just to position this in terms of the marketing. So let's say we have a Black Friday offer that's done. You would come back to just no promotional positioning. So what would you do in terms of just that particular element? I'll let Simon kind of go over a little bit more of the marketing, his ideas, but my view on this would be, what would that transition look like in terms of the media buying, just particularly because I'm looking at that very, very, very much from a perspective of paid ads and offers.
What's the Black Friday? What did you guys run for Black Friday?
Dollar value off positioning. I think it was probably on our higher selling collection, maybe 12% off.
Okay, got it. I see. I think things like for products like this, like I guess all that does really is it kind of gives people urgency to buy now. Like they know they want the product, they know they like the product. And so I think one thing that could work quite well with this is like some kind of giveaway, gifts, bonuses, add-ons, things that kind of like 1 in every 10 for the next 10, for things like that that can bring the urgency of people purchasing into the now, as opposed to kind of like kicking the can down the road further and further. And you might even, so you mentioned before something around the installation costing $1,600 something. And so talk me through this. So they come through, they purchase the initial product, and then after they've purchased the initial product, then they need to have, for example, installation fee paid afterwards. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah. So we charge it on shipment, but there's an assembly job essentially, and we get the product to them, and then it's a day's worth of work to get that all. Got
it. So I think in terms of that, like, there's so many things that you could do there to be like, okay, so 1 in every X amount of people this week, free installation, free delivery, like things like that are like, for you, it actually costs a lot less than trying to give away 12% per unit. But for the customer, it's like, it's complete end to end. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of unknown when I think about buying a product like this. I'm like, so how does it come to my, is it pre-built? Who builds it? How's it going to work?
That's in the page. So technically in terms of the ads, would we say, for example, in our ads, that particular element. So we were going to offer this, or you will wait until the sales call? Like, how would you do that particularly?
Yeah, so it depends on the response. Initially, like, doing this, how's your email list? How big's the email list you have?
It's about 1,600.
And are these, what percentage is customers versus just subscribers?
It'd be given the high ticket nature of what we do, it'd be a fairly small percentage.
Fairly small percentage is customers, the rest are just subscribers, right?
Customers.
Oh, okay, so most of them are customers.
Oh, no. It might be 150 would be customers.
Got it. Understood. Okay, cool. I mean, like, I would test something like that in terms of like, test it to your list. Obviously, they're on there for a reason to, have some kind of information about saunas, have some education, see what they could potentially kind of like get given to them to force or increase the incentive for them purchasing. The other thing on the front end, I think it's also just like positioning that in a way that gets the click. So it's like, you may not necessarily be like, complicated, kind of like 1 in every 10 gets free delivery plus technical kind of support. Like, it's like way too much. You know what I mean? But like, how could I kind of like put that on the front end as like win, or like your chance to win, or like purchase this month, or register for this month, or something along those lines. That's like free delivery, free in-home care, free service for 12 months. Something that's like, you look at, you're like, I feel very supported, because the big concern in people's mind when they buy these things is like, okay, I know that sauna is a real thing. Okay, that's 100%. But then there's all those like after the fact questions. Like I said, who's going to install it? How's it going to be looked after? What happens if there's a problem? What happens if it breaks? What happens if I move house? All those things that you like, those are the unknowns that people hesitate on. And it's like, where's it going to fit? Can I go inside? Geez, there's so many of these like, concerns in the back of their mind. And I think if you could package that up on the front end and have it as like a free install, free like 12 months of like, call it like some kind of insurance almost type thing, where it's like service insurance for the first 12 months. And then you've got like, I don't know, like one removalist type, something that kind of like takes away all of the kind of concerns and alleviation. And you attach a price tag of like, okay, cool, this is $3,800 worth of value. You know what I mean? It's like, for the month of December, we're giving a gift to 1 in every 10 customers. You're going to get our, I don't know, exclusive VIP like insurance membership package, and you'll win this just by purchasing. And I'll be like, wow, like things like that, I think is where you'll get a lot of value from maintaining that price integrity, but giving people, you're doing two things. You're answering all the concerns, but then you're also kind of giving them a bonus to buy now as well. So you're kind of doing like two of those things with that offer. That's how I think about it.
You're almost testing out a new product and service.
Yeah.
Yeah, in what we did, this VIP.
Precisely. And it's a product and service, but it's also positioning, right? Because you see how a lot of people sell these things, and they sell them as just like, here it is here, look at it in my house. Look, I'm sitting shirtless in my sauna. Wow, this is fantastic. You should buy yours. And it's like, that does one thing, because obviously it sells the status of having a sauna, but it's like, there's so many fears and concerns when people are thinking about purchasing, that like a jack dude sitting in a sauna looking sweaty doesn't really talk to, it doesn't really alleviate at all. You know what I mean? So that entry point of being like, let's address the concerns. Let's kind of like give something away on the front end that is even more attractive than the concerns. That might be an entry point for you that can kind of stimulate a lot more conversion. Thoughts, Hammond? What's your thoughts?
Yes. So yeah. Actually, we talked about this a little bit before in terms of positioning. And for me, it was more of, how can we create something that in terms of the marketing, it makes sense to drive more urgency in terms of sales? Because you don't want to position an offer where, we don't have we don't have an ability to get people to act right now, because otherwise they're going to wait, because also we have very limited inventory and they have to wait for months. So I was thinking about what would be the thing, and obviously a promotion is one thing to play with this. But as you mentioned, this like this service, we talked about that a little bit yesterday in terms of potentially doing that, but doing the, like there needs to be something that will push people to act today, so that they know that they're going to get something that others are not getting. I think about it more almost like what would be the benefit to believe in the business early on? Let's say, well, what would be that thing? And you potentially giving them something right now would be valuable for the person, but at the same time, we're also getting that value of that pre-order. So I'm thinking about what would be the balance, and in my view would be exactly what you just mentioned. We don't want to give a discount. We want to give something that would be less expensive for the company, because otherwise we're not going to be in a profitable situation. So what is the thing that I can give that is high value for the customer, and at the same time not necessarily burning our margins? So yeah, that's my job.
And it also, so what you just said there, Hammond. So think about what these people do, who they come through, customers, potential customers. They come through, they click around, they have a look, and in the back of their mind, they go, okay, is this a new company? I don't really know this company. And so like these types of front end mechanisms, they offset that so much. Okay, well, geez, these guys believe in themselves so much that they're willing to do this. Wow. You know what I mean? It's very much what you just said there. It's like you're just like reducing all of the fears around purchasing, and you're giving people that peace of mind that like, we're not here just to, give you some surprise. Here comes your box from China. It's sitting on your doorstep. Figure out how to unbox it. You know what I mean? It's like we're going to be walking with you every step of the way, from the delivery to the installation to the service to the ongoing support. Everything's covered. And like that peace of mind plus your story amplified on top of that, I think that's where you can really get good, strong penetration cut through.
Yeah, cool. I like it.
Very good. Very good. Well, Simon, mate, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped for the future of what you're creating here. I think mainly because your risk tolerance is high, and you have not just crazy risk tolerance, but also like the work ethic to match. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people they don't have those two. They have risk tolerance, and then work ethic is down here. So you have that kind of combination, which I think makes you a lethal individual in the seat that you're in. And I think that combined with like the values of the company and the way you're kind of steering the ship, you're not compromising on the things that are true to you, that actually had you start the business. And I'm very excited, to see what the future holds to help you crack your first $1 million month and well and truly beyond that, because I think what you've built in this small amount of time is pretty impressive. But there's a saying I always say in my teams, and it's like we've come a long way, but we're far from done, essentially. And it's like we've covered a lot of ground. Yes, we've covered a lot of problems, but it's like the future is so much bigger than the past, and I think I see that very much with this brand.
Amazing. Thank you. Pleasure to come on, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Very good.